Hey everyone, my name is Brandon Boyd. I'm from the band Incubus, and we are coming to Australia in like a week or something like
About
that.
6 sleeps, mate. About 6 sleeps. That's it. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. So, Incubus are making a welcome return to this side of the world for a run of shows to celebrate the 20th anniversary of your album Morning View, with shows in Christchurch on April the 2nd. You got Auckland on April 4th. Then you head to Australia, traveling through Bribie Island, Gold Coast, Wollongong, Sydney, Mornington, Melbourne, and Adelaide, and finishing in Hillary's in WA on April 20. Like, that's a lot of shows, mate. I'm exhausted just saying it. How are you going to play them all?
I think this is probably the most extensive tour of Australia we will have done, actually. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about that, but I don't remember having played. I think it's like 8 or 9 shows by itself just in Australia. So
Right.
excited.
And it's going to be your first trip down here since 2018, mate. So I suppose the biggest question is, why have you neglected us for so long?
No, something happened in the world sometime after 2019 that like made it so traveling was really tough. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but something happened that
Oh,
kept us off of airplanes and stuff. So we're we're sorry it's taken us so long, but we're really excited to be able to finally make our way back, and we're thrilled to be able to do these shows with the band live as well.
hell yeah, mate. So, what would you say has actually changed with Incubus since you're out here last then?
Oh boy, a lot of things have changed. Not the least of which is, let's see, 2018, 19, 2021.
I had to use my fingers too.
Yeah. Uh, there's, I don't have any kids yet, but there's quite a few more kids that were made in the band. I think Mikey has 7 or 8 now, something like that. not not that many, but quite a few. Um,
Football team.
we all, um, we have a new member in our band. Nicole Rowe is playing bass with us. She's been with us for just about a year, I think, and she started out filling in for Ben Kenny, our bass player of over 20 years. And upon his recommendation, actually, that's how we found out about Nicole. Was Ben Kenny recommended that we call her to fill in for him while he was um, stepping out for a time. And then when he decided to not come back to the band, we it was a tough call, but it was his to make, and we were saddened by it. But then we asked Nicole if she was interested in being a part of our band more permanently, and she enthusiastically accepted. And it's been a real joy playing with her and being around her. And so yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that's changed. I think is just we have a new member.
Yeah. And you sort of touched on this briefly before, mate, but you were bringing with you another legendary band in the form of Live. So it's a perfect touring team as far as I'm concerned. But what made you decide that bringing them out here would be a good fit?
This was something that it honestly wouldn't have occurred to me to put our bands together to do this. It came through other channels to potentially pair us up to tour. But when we heard about it as a possibility through these other channels, all of us were very enthusiastic about the idea because, Live was one of those bands when I was growing up that they just had some bangers. You know what I mean? Like, they got some tracks that are just killer. And I've actually never seen them play live. And
Wow.
so pretty awesome to go on tour with a band that you enjoy, but you've never had the pleasure of seeing live. And so this will be my introduction to them formally.
Geez, that's amazing. There wouldn't be many bands out there that you haven't played with before that you actually like, would there?
Yeah, we've been really lucky over the years. There's been so many of bands that we grew up listening to, and some of these bands like made us want to be a band ourselves, and we've ended up touring with them, which is kind of amazing, like to think about it like that, because I think ultimately, first and foremost, we're music fans. Like we're just kind of obsessed with music, and music was one of my first obsessions: music and art, and surfing. Those three things were like they still are pretty much everything to me. Uh, Other exceptions. Um, so yeah, there were bands that we would go and see live when they came through Los Angeles here. And, they inspired us to pick up instruments and pick up microphones and start practicing and playing and trying to write our own songs. And then some years later, we ended up touring with some of these bands. So it's pretty awesome, full circle.
Would be. And out of the 9 shows that you play, mate, 5 of them are part of the actual tour, but you're also part of the inaugural Lookout Festival, which features Aussie bands, Birds of Tokyo, Eskimo Joe, and the Super Jesus. Like, sounds like a lot of fun. You got the contrasting between the outdoor shows and the inside shows. It's a nice balance.
Yeah, I always look forward to doing festivals outside with a bunch of bands that we sometimes haven't heard of, and some very often haven't seen perform. So festivals are an incredible way to see a bunch of new music. Those were some incredible band names that you mentioned. I don't know those bands, but the names of the bands are amazing.
That's a good way to look at it. That's different. And I'm probably going to put you on the spot a little bit here, mate. But what do you sort of look forward to the most, like the outdoor festivals with the local Aussie bands, I guess, or the inside, more sort of intimate, personal shows with your fans with a band like Live?
If I could craft the perfect tour just for my own selfish motives and reasons, it would be a mixture of festivals and headlining dates. And so I'm really looking forward to this trip because we get to have our cake and eat it too. Doing exclusively festival tours is fun, but then, can be a little bit monotonous. Doing exclusively headlining shows is super fun, but can also get kind of monotonous. So a kind of craftily structured changing of this atmosphere is sort of the best way, in my opinion, of going on tour, because you don't have a chance to become complacent.
I suppose the one thing that everyone does know about the tour already, though, is they're pretty much going to know most of the set list because you're celebrating the 20th birthday of your 4th album, Morning View, which came out back in 2001. So you're playing that album in full, is that right?
No, not on this trip. We'll be doing quite a lot of Morning View, but it's going to be how do you say this? Like our sets that we're bringing down there are a kind of romp through the Incubus catalog.
Mm-hmm. But the catalog's massive, mate. Like you've got the 8 albums all up, I think. Like your songs, like you guys are a band, I guess, that so many different people have connected with for so many different reasons, which makes a wide selection of fan favorite songs. Like when you're doing your set list up, like it's got to be hard because, like I said, you're not just playing to one sort of fan, so you can't just pick that one collection of songs. You've got to try and cover a spectrum. Like it'd make it more difficult, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and then you try and factor in making the set fun and interesting for us in the band. You have to factor in so many different things. So you are correct. Writing sets gets progressively more challenging. We take all of those things into consideration, and that's how we come up with the sets that we write. If we were writing a set that was just for us, it would look very, very different. If we were writing it just for the fans, it would look very different. So this is really a kind of a combination of all of those factors that you laid out. And it ends up being, I think, a better set because there's a little bit of everything happening. And we always leave room for lots of improvisation, and we love covering other people's music randomly and fitting in other people's music into some of the bridges of our songs. And it's a delightful mess, put it that way.
And another thing too, that like along those set list lines, like your music, it relies a lot on atmospherics and moods, I've found, while you're doing it. So does that make it more difficult too, like getting songs that flow in with each other along those lines?
That's one of the things that we factor in while we're writing these sets, is we see how and if songs will actually segue into each other properly. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they most definitely don't. Sometimes there are segues that are just really awkward, and we don't know that until we play them in sequence. And so when we're essentially coming up with these set lists, we can have an idea about what like a quote good set would be, but then we'll perform it together in the privacy of our rehearsal studio, and we figure out pretty quick what does and doesn't work.
Now, I'm not going to ask too much on this, mate, but can I ask if Gig made the final cut?
Dig. Oh, the
Yeah.
song Dig.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I don't want to tell you the ingredient of the meal before we serve it to you.
Whisper it to me. I won't tell anyone. So sort of focusing a bit on the album Morning View because you've just finished the tour over there celebrating that, and you are celebrating it here, mate. Like the main songs of that, you first started playing them around the 2000s because that's when the album came out. But they all stood the test of time because you've just, like I say, you've just finished playing them again now. Like, did they get the same sort of response 20 years later, or did people relate to them differently?
Well, we're gonna do the Morning View tour here in the States that starts in August. We haven't actually done it yet. We did one show at the Hollywood Bowl in October where we performed Morning View from front to back. And it was a pretty wild experience because it's hard to really truly gauge how people feel about a song, let alone like an entire album. But for some reason, that album seems to have resonated with people more deeply, and I feel so much gratitude that it has. You never rely on that kind of thing. You put your heart and your soul into making music, but there's no guarantee of the response or the outcome. You just do your best and kind of hope that people hear it and then enjoy it if they hear it. That's the thing that's been getting more and more challenging as we get further into the internet age. It's like getting people to even know that you have an album out is becoming
You get lost.
a major lift. Yeah, you're competing with the internet. It's my analogy is sort of like crying during a hurricane. It's like it's gonna know that no one's gonna hear you.
That's a good way to put it. Now we're running out of time, mate. But before we go, I did want to bring up the fact that you have re-recorded Morning View, which is going to be released on May the 10th as Morning View 23. So tell us quickly about that release.
Yes, comes out May 10th. We've put out 2 of the tracks already. We put out the song Echo, and we put out Circles. The next song that comes out, I think it comes out in like a week, is Under My Umbrella. We've been purposefully putting out songs that weren't singles back in the early 2000s, though I'm sure the songs that were singles back then will become singles in the near future again. But yeah, we're super excited about it. The re-record turned out beautifully. We worked really hard on it. And us in the band and everyone that we've played it for seem pretty excited about it. So we hope that our listeners will give it a fair shot.
And how about from a personal point of view, mate? Like, did you find it difficult in any way, I guess, reconnecting with those songs nearly 25 years after you wrote them?
I don't think it was difficult to reconnect with them. What was challenging was to put myself back in a position from like a physiological place. Like I'm 48, and when we wrote and recorded that, I was 25. So my voice has changed a little bit, and it's been through any number of adventures in that period of time. So, but I found it, and I continue to find it, the place, the resonance, so to speak, of where I was when I was singing those songs. And yeah, I'm actually really stoked with the way it turned out. So I'm excited for people to hear it.
Well, very good, mate. All right. Well, that's our time up, Brandon. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, mate. Thank you very much. The tour kicks off in under a week in New Zealand on the 2nd of April. One more show there, then moves to Australia. So check out your socials, do your thing, and get along to a show.
Thank you so much.